thank you so much for coming back to the Speakers Bureau and to this program. And for those of you, if this is your first time being a part of the program and listening to us, I want to tell you a little bit about the Speakers Bureau. We have this program in St. Lucie County Public Schools so that we can encourage, inspire, and motivate our community through telling our own life stories. Talk about the challenges. These people that come on as our guests, they have been very successful in this community, and they all live in St. Lucie County, and they will share their experiences and their challenges and what they did to overcome. So sit back and enjoy. We do this for our children, but we also do this for our entire community. There are parents, there are teachers, there are people out there that need encouragement. We all need encouragement. And so today I have a very special speaker. He is Mr. Harry Williams. And Mr. Harry Williams is a retired educator and coach. And he's also the president of the St. Lucie County Retired Educators Association. So he's been in this community. I don't know if he was born in this community, but I know he's been here a long time. He's actually gone to school here and actually worked for St. Lucie County Public Schools. He's going to tell us how many years and all that background stuff that we want to hear today. Welcome, Mr. Williams. Harry is what you know, and I'm Donna.
Thank you.
And it's
Thank you,
so
Donna.
good to have known you throughout these years. I know that you know my husband personally.
Very well.
Yes, and so y'all went to school together, right?
He was a little behind me. He was a young baby.
You're
I was
actually older than him?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, great. So we're looking forward to hearing your story. Can you first tell us why you chose the career you went into, and what career did you go into?
My original career choice was to spend a career in the military.
Okay.
When I graduated from high school, Fort Pierce Central High School in 1971, I was 17 years old. I was an only child, and Vietnam was in full swing. My father was incarcerated. I was being raised by a single mother, and my mother refused to sign the agreement to allow me to go into the military as a 17-year-old. So I was stubborn and said, okay, if I can't go to the military, I'm not going to go to school. Unbeknownst that I was offered a full 4-year scholarship to play football at Morehouse College. How naive was I at the time? I didn't understand the prestige of attending Morehouse College. All I knew was Morehouse was an all-boys school, and I didn't want to go there. So I told my mom and I told Coach Hines, no, I don't want to attend that school. And nobody pushed me to say, okay, you need to do this. So they just accepted my no. And I went back to St. Augustine, where I was raised, to assist with my grandparents, who was living in St. Augustine at the time. I had no hankering of going to school, and I was just going to wait until I get 18 so I can go to the military on my own accord. I was dating a young lady, and she invited me to attend homecoming at Florida A&M University. I had never been on a college campus other than Indian River Junior College at that time. And I visited FAMU, and I said, oh, this college life is the place to be. So the turnaround was so fast. I came home in November of 1972, and I was admitted at FAMU in January 1973, just to get that quick turnaround. I saw
All because of one person taking you to a college campus.
Being exposed to a college
and
campus.
Exposing you to something different.
Because I never, like I said, other than at that time in Fort Pierce, you can begin an education at Lincoln Park Academy in 7th grade and matriculate all the way through to an AA degree, because Lincoln Junior College was on that campus also until they merged us all in, and we ended up going to Fort Pierce Central. But I really, in the beginning, had no idea that I would become a teacher, because at that time, my focus was strictly military. I did get that opportunity to go to the military because I matriculated through Florida A&M by virtue of a full military scholarship, Naval ROTC. And the irony in that story, Florida A&M University was my school of choice. There was quite a few students from Fort Pierce that were there. The first 3 lieutenants ever to be commissioned, the second lieutenants in the United States Marine Corps from Florida A&M, were all from Fort Pierce.
Wow.
Harry B. Williams, Rodney Demps, and Bobby Johnson. We all went to the Marine Corps together from right here in Fort Pierce. So that was a historical moment for us.
Yes.
I got into the Marine Corps, and my wife didn't like it because during that time, Iran had captured the hostages, and I was being trained on a classified mission to go rescue the hostages. I couldn't tell my wife where I was going. She just knew I was going to the desert in 29 Palms, California to train. She was pregnant with our first child at the time. And when she found out what my mission was, she said, don't want to do this. So I resigned my commission into the Marine Corps, and I came back to Florida. Started teaching in 1981 because I felt like if I was not gonna be in a position to serve my country in the military, I wanted to come back and serve my community in which I was raised. I wasn't born here, but I was raised here from 7th grade. So Mr. Heilich and Mr. Middleton and Mr. Little and all those people who were instrumental in my upbringing in the school system encouraged me to become a teacher. My favorite subject at the time was science, but because my original major in college was electrical engineering, I had a math background. So my wife and I moved over here in August of 1981. We interviewed with Mr. Jacob Gallman at Fort Pierce Central. We were hired on the spot same day, and I spent 34 years teaching at Fort Pierce Central with only 1 year interrupted. I went in 2007, no, it was actually during 9/11. I spent that year at Centennial High School, and then I went back to Fort Pierce Central to end my career in 2015.
Wow. So what did you teach? I know you taught math, but what, all math? I mean, this was a high school.
Right.
So,
My predominant subject was algebra. Algebra and intensive math. The thought process at the time was, as a coach of sports, that we as coaches were duality as being able to motivate kids, and our focus was the low achieving kids. And so I chose to choose that area to teach the lower 25% to try to get those kids up to par. You know,
Okay.
so that was my choice, and I eventually worked through and became the department chair at Fort Pierce Central, and that's how I retired.
that's an incredible story. Now we're going to ask more about your childhood, but you've shared some already. Can you talk to us a little bit more regarding you were only child, so I got
Yes.
that. I was going to say regarding your siblings, and no, he was an only child. So tell me, what did it? We got children out there that are only one child in the family.
Right.
Tell us what's that's like to be an only child.
Well,
And then you didn't have dad; you just had mom in the household.
in the beginning, it was both.
Okay.
You know, back in the day, I was born in 1953. Back in the day, if a teenager became pregnant, they shipped them off somewhere. You know, at the time we were living in St. Augustine, Florida. My mom was 16, my dad was 19. My mom became pregnant, and my grandfather's sister lived in Philadelphia. He worked for Florida East Coast Railroad, so the story I've been told, naturally, because I wasn't around yet.
That's all right.
She caught the train and went to Philadelphia, and she went through her pregnancy there. Harry Belafonte was doing a concert in December of 1953.
I always wondered about that name.
And my
Okay.
mom wanted to go to the concert as a teenager in New York, and she couldn't because she was 9 months pregnant. So when I was born, December 15, 1953, she bestowed that name upon me. So that's the original name, Harry Belafonte Williams. That's how that came about. We didn't really spend a lot of time in Philadelphia because after I was born, she came back to St. Augustine to reside with my grandfather and my grandmother. Her and my father had just gotten married, and All of my elementary years I spent in St. Augustine. Attended kindergarten there. My first 2 years of school, I went to St. Benedict de Moore Catholic School. And then I was transferred over to Excelsior Elementary, where I went from 3rd grade to 6th grade. I had the dubious distinction, I guess you would say, of growing up in the civil rights era. You know, even though I was a kid at 5th grade, 6th grade, when we had racial troubles in 1964 in St. Augustine, Dr. Martin Luther King came to town, and we at that time didn't know the ramifications of the future. We just knew what we were living in the present. And my grandmother came to us and said, "You guys got to go to church." "Grandma, it's Wednesday night. You know, we just went to church Sunday." "Well, this man is in town and he wants to speak to all of the kids and all of the young adults, and we need you to be there. We need you guys to be there." And at that time, I was only in 6th grade. So went to church, unbeknownst the true grit of what was happening. St. Paul AME Church in St. Augustine, the man speaking was Martin Luther King. So he was teaching us how to deal with the racial segregation, with nonviolence and such, because they demonstrated at night, you know, doing battles against the Ku Klux Klan and trying to get St. Augustine segregated. They'd never allowed the little kids to go with the demonstrations except during the daytime. So they taught us to go in the daytime and hold signs. And we went down, and I saw my aunt, my uncle, and literally everybody in my family go to jail for civil unrest. And on this one particular evening, and I know exactly when it was, 1964 Olympics, Bob Hayes was getting ready to run in the 100-yard dash at the time. My grandmother had a propensity for every night she had to have a RC soda and a BC headache powder before she went to bed. So she said, "Okay, you guys got to go to the store and get my RC and my BC." The store was only about a half mile from the house. So my friend, we took off running to the store, and on the way back, running home, a guy stopped us in the car. We as kids in St. Augustine were accustomed to being stopped by quote unquote white people in a car, because there was a one-way street that led from the tourist area into the black neighborhood. If you made that wrong turn as a tourist, you ended up in the black neighborhood. So they always ask us, "Well, how do I get out of here? You know, left turn, to take you back to where you were gonna go." So anyway, this guy stopped us this night. He said, "Which one of y'all threw the brick?" I'm 6th grade, my friend's 7th grade. I looked at him, we looked at the guy, and we were just about getting ready to run. And we didn't throw a brick, and within seconds we were surrounded by police cars. Luckily, my next door neighbor was walking home, and I said, "Get my aunt and tell my aunt that the cops got us down here." Because my mom had already left St. Augustine to move to Fort Pierce. She was seeking employment. My dad was incarcerated, so I was living with my aunt and my grandmother. My aunt came back down, and my friend, my aunt, and myself, we were put in the back seat of a police car. No petition behind us. There was a German Shepherd dog behind us that we can literally feel the heat of him breathing down our necks. And they took us to jail. 6th grade. I'm still holding the soda in my hand. Never handcuffed us or anything, but they took us downtown and they asked us the same 2 questions for 2 hours. "Which one of you all threw the brick?" "Didn't throw a brick." "Why were you running?" "We're going home." Then they'd go to my friend, ask him the same question. "Which one of you threw the brick?" So we went through that process, and they never questioned my aunt, never said a thing to her. We went through that process for about 2 hours, and they took us back home. My mother immediately thought that the local police in St. Augustine had found out who my father was, because my father, he wasn't a bad guy. He was just a lot of mischief in the neighborhood, you know, petty things, and that's why he was incarcerated. So she said, well, it was a good thing that we were planning to move to Fort Pierce. So she allowed me to finish 6th grade in St. Augustine. She didn't want to disrupt my education. And we moved to Fort Pierce in 1965, and I started matriculation at Lincoln Park Academy. Attended Lincoln Park from 7th to 11th grade until they phased Lincoln Park out and created Fort Pierce Central. And went over to Fort Pierce Central, graduated there after only 1 year. And that's when I was supposedly to go to Morehouse to play football, but I chose not to. Couldn't go to the military. So I ended up flabbergasting for about a year and a half before I finally went to FAMU. And got a degree, got a commission into the Marine Corps, and I think I did pretty well for myself.
Yes, you did. And it's so, I'm so grateful that things turned out well in spite of.
Yep.
You know, we think,
Could have taken a left turn.
Right. I often think about what our people went through, you know, and in history here in this country. And I often think about how we as a people need to take full advantage now of what we have and protect what we have, because it wasn't always like that. And now we do have, because of so many people who laid their lives down. Martin Luther King laid his life down. We had a speaker right before you who aired all during December, the month of December, our commissioner, County Commissioner Sean Mitchell, who mentioned that Abraham Lincoln was one of his heroes, that he laid his life down. You know, his life was taken for his stance, you know, and so to have, you know, I want to ask you, who is your hero? You mentioned King and hearing him at such a young age. My hero, I always tell people, is Harriet Tubman. You know, she was a woman. She was a black woman who was able to escape from slavery, you know, and she's my hero because she went back to help her people get delivered. And there's so many ways that we can go back to help people get delivered, you know.
Right.
And she never lost a passenger anyway. She's not the only hero. The Underground Railroad, all of those other folks who they were willing to hide people in their homes and get them to the north, they're all my heroes. Because it's important to have people that will stand up for people. And they're white, you know. We have white and black people that will not stand for wrong and will stand up for what's right. And those folks I have the utmost respect for. Who is your hero?
My hero is my mother.
Okay.
I saw what she endured all of my life. And most of my life, I was raised by strong women. My father was incarcerated literally at an early age for me. He was released from prison the second semester of my senior year. So that means he never saw me play football. He saw me run track and
How many
spring
years
sports.
that he was in prison?
From my 5th grade year until my senior year of high school.
Wow, okay.
So, but I was raised by a bunch of strong women. I had the privilege of knowing my great-great-grandmother, her parents were slaves, and she grew up as an indentured servant. I knew my great-grandmother, who was an entrepreneur. She started her own hair business in St. Augustine, Florida. Both of my grandmothers, my maternal and paternal grandmother, and my mother. So in my life, my grandfather was there, had a few uncles there, but the strength of my life was strong black women, and especially my mother, to see what she endured, to make sure that I got what I needed to be successful. I started out as an only child. She did have another child, she had another pregnancy, which resulted in a stillborn birth in January 1st, 1955. So basically my life was all alone. And the support was Emma Julia Mosley Williams, my mother. You know, she made sure that there was food on the table, made sure we had somewhere to live, and those things as a kid, you take for granted that it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
But then when you grow up and find out the trials and tribulations that it took for her and my family members to do that, you know, to keep us above board, you know, we didn't think we were poor. We didn't think we were financially deprived because of the fact that we got everything that we ever wanted, you know. But growing up with her and seeing what she did for me, and then having her pass away at such a young age, because she passed away at 44 years old from breast cancer. So
Wow.
she was able to see me matriculate through college. She pinned my bars on my shoulder when I got a commission into the Marine Corps. She on one side and my wife on the other. My wife at that time was my girlfriend.
That's your
She-
current wife now?
Yes,
You only got one, okay.
Benita, yes.
Clarify that.
She had the opportunity to see my first daughter. Latanya was born when we moved back here in 1982. And she saw her for her first year of her life, and then she passed away
So
of
now
cancer.
you look back and you see it could have happened earlier. You could have lost her earlier, but she
Very
was
much so.
able to be there doing
Right.
a lot of the highlights of your life before passing, even at a young age
Right.
of 44. And I can see why she would be your hero, you know, having a child so young in life. And like you said, back in those days, people disappeared. You know, many times the child was given to someone else
Right.
to raise, but she kept you, and she endured what she endured. Yeah, she's definitely a hero. Now,
ma'am.
you have been a teacher. You're now retired, but you've been a teacher in our district for 30 plus years.
34 years.
Yep, all those years right at Fort Pierce Central.
Yes.
But you had teachers in life. And my question to you at this time is, what teacher did you have that made the most impact on you that you can remember?
I think it would be a group of, you know, Mr. Jack Hallett. He influenced me greatly because of what he did with the science department. Cleon Middleton taught me the advantages of mathematics. Matthew Meadows, who was a politician, he was my social studies teacher. Bob Coleman encouraged me to start playing tennis, and I became the #1 slot on the tennis team.
Wow.
So, and at that particular time, you know, it was a rarity for men to be educators, because especially elementary educators, because most elementary educators, even now, are women. You know, so I
Yes.
was lucky enough to, you know, I know some guys, some friends of mine who went to school for years and never had a male teacher, you know, but I was lucky enough to have those males in my life that were right here from the community, and, you know, they knew what my situation was, and they respected what my mom was doing for me, and they made sure that I followed that correct path, you know, so that was my incentive for
Wow.
being a teacher, because I could not get my first choice of a career, which was the military, because I really didn't want to go against the wishes of my wife. So following their footsteps, and all of them ended up being career educators, and I felt as though, and it was instilled upon me that you always support the community that supported you. And Fort Pierce did that for me when I grew up, you know, even though in some respects I still call St. Augustine home. My godmother's house is a national monument. If you Google 81 Bridge Street, my godmother's house will come up. You know, I grew up there. That's the house where Martin Luther King lived in when he came to St. Augustine, because during those times, Black people were not allowed to reside in hotels. So if a celebrity or somebody came to town, they had to be put up by the residents. And she still resides in the same house. You know, she's 97 years old now.
Wow.
And she's
So,
still there now.
So, as you know already, we have had a after-school program for many years. When I say we, my husband and I. And it's always been a desire that we had more Black males involved in the children's lives that we reach out to. And I know you're part of a fraternity. Can you tell us, we don't have a lot of time left, but tell us what a fraternity you're a part of. And what I heard you say was, you mentioned these men that made an impact in your life, and they happened to be Black men, I'm thinking, right? Back in that time. And even back then, there wasn't a lot of men teaching. But, you know, I mean, that's part of my dream, is to have Black mentors especially for, well, even girls need it, you know, but the males need it as well,
Right.
so that they can be inspired by males rather than all women. Tell us about your fraternity, and maybe you'll go back and let them know that we could use their help on a one-on-one basis
Okay.
once a week with the child, taking one child and helping them academically, but not just academically, helping them in life. Talk to us about what your fraternity does. We've got about 3 minutes
Okay.
left.
Well, I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. I've been a member for 46 years. And we actually sponsor a youth group called Lamplighters. It's called Lamplighters in our community. But
I've
throughout the
heard that
country,
name.
other chapters have different names for it, you know, but it's basically a mentoring group set up by the fraternity. And our goal is to assist young boys to become young men. The little things like tying a tie, etiquette, proper diction, proper way of displaying yourself in an interview. And we mentor on-one, and members of our fraternity pretty much covers every walk of life, from doctors, attorneys, teachers, medical people, in any profession that you can do. Some member of our fraternity is in that profession. So it gives young men the opportunity to not only see, but to meet people that are successful. And it will give them an idea of what they want to do, because the average kid doesn't have an idea
What
they want to do.
What age do you start with the young man?
We started in 9th grade, and my son was a lamplighter way back in the day, and when he became a lamplighter along with Martez Prince and a couple of other high school kids, they said we need to reach out to younger kids. So they started what we call the junior lamplighters, which reached out to as low as 6th grade. The need grew even stronger, and we now accept kids as low as 3rd grade. But it's with the pandemic and not being able to meet face to face, the group has sort of been dwindling over the last 18 months or so. So now that the kids have been approved for vaccinations and those kinds of things, we're trying to get it back on track so that we can meet with them. We were the only youth group in St. Lucie County that met every week. We met every Wednesday.
We're almost out of time, and I want to ask this question. When you get back rolling again, or is it any child can be a part of this group, or how does, and we're just about out of
We
time.
try not to turn anybody away.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
not just your fraternity kids?
Oh, no,
it's
no. It's
wow.
any young man in the
Okay.
community.
That's how we birthed the virtual Zoom that we do
Right.
with kids now out of the pandemic. That's how that got birthed, where it's one-on-one on virtual. And now that numbers are going down, we're now, you know, some of the volunteers will come into the site and tutor with some of the kids that come in.
Okay.
But we're open to the public school system with it for kids that principals feel really need that extra help. We are out of time, but I have enjoyed you as a guest tremendously, and you have imparted much knowledge to our community, and I've learned much, and I believe in forever being a learner, so a student of learning. So I want to thank you so much, Mr. Harry Belafonte Williams.
So very well.
And we're so glad you made it on this earth, because that was a challenge all by itself with
Yes,
Mama,
ma'am.
you
Yes,
know, being so young. But look at what she produced and how much you've been a blessing to our community. Thank you so much for coming on. And hopefully in the near future, I will have you back on as a guest.
Gladly.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Okay.